Also, the if you're sending more than one child to school at the same time, there are some schools now that have determined that we're not going to split it in half. So say if they, both of them, we say, okay, based on your family finances, we think you can pay 50 grand, but since you got two kids going to school at the same time, we're going to split that in half. We are seeing them make changes to that. Not every school is taking that away, but that is being taken away. And it is going to make it harder for the middle class parents, right?
Yeah,
The low income parents that their income was already low, they were already going to get money, whether they had one kid or five kids, they're not impacted. But the people who that would have made or break whether they were going to qualify for financial aid. That's happening. I can't change what Congress is going to do, but I'm always looking for other alternatives to figure out what can we do and what other avenues we can take. Um, I would like to see colleges charge less money if you're going to study online. I did see something today about a income agreement model. I think some schools might be um, starting to say, "Look, we'll just take a percentage of what you earn when you graduate." Now, this is way, just developing, but we are seeing, some remnants of that happening in the future as well.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that would seem to make a big difference with the split households too. And I wonder too about uh, grandparents. You know what I mean? And the
hmm
influence of grandparents. There's probably also that dynamic too.
Yeah, that was is yeah, grandparents with 529s. I gotta brush up on that myself, but sometimes people will ask me, well, the grandparent has a 529, and some of the changes are being made to now factor that in a little bit more. But I have
Hmm.
to get back to you on that.
Okay. Um, Curious. I think I mean, everyone's financial picture is just so complex. I mean, it must be difficult to weed through, how that's going to be accounted for. Um,
Yeah, and that's not their objective. Their objective is to make a fair rule that applies to everyone.
right,
Right?
right,
Is,
right.
for instance,
Yeah,
let's just say you own a business and you just get to write off everything, so your income looks super low. Versus somebody who works, but you really live off a lot of money, but on paper you look broke, you know.
sounds
But they get an
familiar.
advantage. They get an advantage. It's just because we're just saying anybody
Yeah.
whose income is over 100 doesn't qualify. Everybody whose income is under. And then what about the people who are making 100 grand in Alabama versus the people who are making 100 grand in
Hmm.
Fairfield, Connecticut?
Right.
It's completely different. The lifestyle
Uh,
that those people are living, right?
100
But
in Fairfield County, you're living in the gutter, man. Forget it.
if you're even living there,
Right, right, yeah, yeah, exactly.
you
Commuting
know,
from Alabama.
yeah,
Uh, uh, so how can parents, particularly, I guess I'm thinking of younger students, prepare um, for uh, for these changes upcoming? I guess I'm thinking particularly selfishly for me. I have a 9. I talk about
yeah,
5 or 10 years from now. Like what
yeah.
can
I
these
mean,
parents?
I think that, and you have an advantage here, Alex, is that enriching your child and getting them to get involved in interesting activities that are going to continue to add to their resume and make them a very scholarship worthy student is very useful.
Hmm.
Obviously, you know, um, factoring in the cost of college into your budget. Like I have a cousin. I wonder if he's going to see this, but I have a cousin who he just finished telling me that he only likes to fly first class now, and you know he's tired of coach and this and that. I'm like, okay, man, well keep that same energy when it's time to send your kid to school, right? Don't tell me that you
Mm,
want the Spirit Airlines of colleges and high schools, but you wanted first class when it was time to go on vacation, right? So,
yeah, it's hard.
yeah, so that's always a tough question because especially with the changing in times, but you know, just taking consideration that that expense is looming up and doing whatever you can to prepare for it. I don't expect everybody that comes to me to have 100 grand in 529. But I do
Yeah.
want to see that you've thought about it and put away whatever you can, whether it's 20 grand or 15 grand or whatever, because it's just going to make it easier when you go through this process. Summer programs are fantastic. They got summer programs for sixth, seventh, 11th graders that are going to be studying biology and doing labs, and it's all that stuff makes it easier to handle your first honors class and those classes in the future,
What
and they end up being feeders for some of the harder programs later.
when you're talking about those summer programs, are you thinking of any in particular that you would
Oh,
recommend?
well, it depends on what the kid is interested in, right? But I do like Envision. I think Envision's pretty good. It's not a very difficult program to get accepted to, and I think they go as young as like fifth grade, where even the fifth graders are learning about genetics or learning about
Cool.
something that they can do. There's a lot of different ones at college campuses, and they're very very inexpensive ones too that you can do. Um, but they become feeders because you're doing this program when you're young, and then now that allows you to get into the really like HSSP, which is a engineering program that's very selective at Michigan State. It's not going to be your first summer program. You had to have done like ID Tech or something else for younger kids so that you would be a good candidate for that summer program. And of course, you add the summer program like that that's really productive to a college application when it's time for you to apply to MIT, and that can make a difference. It doesn't always, but it can give you that additional exposure that you may not get at high school or middle school.
So ID Tech is I take it that's a junior.
Yeah, like
Um,
if I got a kid that's into computer science or entrepreneurship or stuff like that, robotics, it's a quick little online thing that the kids can do. It's like very inexpensive, but it's something that they can start to get exposed to, because in middle school and high school, you're not maybe going to get an opportunity to delve into coding and things like that necessarily. Beats playing video games over the weekend, over the summer too.
Absolutely. I think a lot of parents, if they're anything like me, are always looking for things to do with their kids over the summer. They
Yeah,
aren't
yeah, yeah.
destroying the house or beating up their siblings.
Yeah,
Uh,
and making sure that these are reasonably priced experiences that are actually going to be useful for the child in the future. You know.
cool. All right. Right on time, man. So just wanted to say thank you. Great information. And thanks very much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Alex. Look forward
Cool.
to seeing the episode.
Yeah. So it should come out in, well, let me